And we're being joined this morning by a former director of the Department of State Services, Mr. Dennis Amakri, who joins us virtually all the way from New York. Mr. Amakri, it's so good to see you on the program this morning. Good morning and welcome. Well, I know it's really early where you are. Thank you so much for staying up to speak with us this morning on the program.
Good morning, and thank you for having me.
I want to ask you, I know that, yes, you're not in the country as of now, but I'm sure you must have been following events happening in different parts of the country. You must have heard of what has happened in Jos. Before that, a very significant one happened in Edo State, specifically in Uromi. And then just yesterday, it would seem that the governor is reporting, the governor of Borno State is reporting that, you know, there is a rollback on the gains that we have made against the fight against insurgency. I don't know what your thoughts are in terms of what is happening, because the National Security Advisor continues to insist that security agencies are not dropping the ball. But we're losing lives, and we're seeing that there is, you know, these incidences happening. What do you think is afoot, you know, with all of these incidences that we're recording?
Well, thank you very much for having me. Yes, yesterday I was listening to the Chief of Army Staff, and I was really sad because going through what happened in Uromi, the one in Plateau, the killings in Plateau, and now, of course, Borno State, it's really sad because, let's say, the criminal economy is still booming, and then of course the security agencies are overstretched in what they are doing, and it becomes a situation where, you know, we are just trying to run in circles. Yesterday it was very, very instructive when I heard the Chief of Army Staff said in Borno that you know, they are doing their best, but he will pray that we now look for political solution. That was very heavy, because a military general is saying that we're not going to fight this again, and then of course let's do it politically. So, and it means a lot. It means a lot, because we've left it for the security people, while this political solution, which it deserves, is still hanging in there.
That's very significant. I'm glad that you also highlighted that particular issue, because that came up in a conversation we were having yesterday. We had quite a number of, we had two security experts in the studio, and they were talking about how, you know, we needed to find a political solution, that this conflict will end, especially with regards to what was happening in Plateau State, that this conflict will end when, you know, all the parties agree that the conflict will end. And that raised controversy, that raised a number of questions. But yesterday we now heard the Chief of Army Staff, you know, echo just what you said, and he said that, you know, he has had a meeting, and as you rightly highlighted, that you're thinking of a political solution, which raises questions, because people say, what exactly could be the politics around a group of people coming into a community or going into communities, because about 5 communities were affected in Bokos local government area, sporadically shooting into the air, killing 50 people, burning houses, about 300 of them, displacing 700 people, and we say at the end of the day that it's politics that are at the bottom of it. What sort of politics are we looking at here?
You know, when you look at the situation in Nigeria, you find out that the threats that face the country are very, very fundamental. You know, they are fundamental, and the root causes of these threats are very simple: religion, ethnicity, you know, cultural, you know. So these particular fundamental issues have to be addressed, because when people are living together and they don't believe in the same religion, and they have to be, you know, kill each other because they don't believe in the same religion, or they are not from the same ethnic group, or they, you know, they don't believe in the same political party and stuff like that. And of course, a lot of the politicians come out to use these threats in dealing with, somebody loses election and he run down to his town and say, oh, I lost it because I'm not a Nupe man, and they threw me out because I'm an Igbo man, or, stuff like that. So you find out that these ethnic underlining have caused a lot of problem, and they are political, because in fact, I can extend it to say that it is a problem caused by politicians if we have to address it properly.
It's really very sad. I can relate to what it is that you're saying, Mr. Amakri, but some people will say that isn't this about a lack of consequences? Isn't this more about a lack of consequences? Because how can anyone go to a particular place, kill 50 people? How can a group of people, profile some people ethnically and burn 11 people? How can we hear what is happening in Borno State now, where there are just these attacks happening? Big questions as to the capacity of the state to be able to assert itself and mete out punishment to those who are deserving of it. Isn't that more of what this is about? The capacity of the state to really, push and make sure that it asserts itself?
Yes, you're very, very correct, Mogwe, because when you look at what we have in Nigeria right now, there is security and there is politics, and of course, they really don't, immediately you mix it together, it brings out a product that is very, very obnoxious to the ordinary citizen, and that's what they are doing, because no consequences. You're right. There are no consequences. People do this, and instead of dealing with these people, we use political solutions. We say it's a family affair, So, there is the rule of law itself is not followed. So people come up, some people wake up one morning, go carry their animals to go and raid the farm, eat up all the crops, and then the owners of the farm will also go back and then start killing. It is happening in a country where we have a government that sometimes overlook these things because they feel that maybe, it is cultural, it is tribal, or it is revenge.
Mr. Macri, while I want to, we're looking at security on a broad base, I want to, also be specific, because every single situation which we have painted, particularly in the last 3 scenarios which we have now highlighted, are different. They're unique in their own way, even though when you look at it, they have common threads. They have things that would bind them together. Take a look at what happened in Edo State, in Uromi specifically. The people of Uromi said they had been complaining that there were attacks on their communities. People are unable to go to farms. Even traditional rulers seem to be, making certain pronouncements in their area. And then they see these people traveling through their community, and then they see weapons on them. Big questions as to what exactly. They said they were hunters. And they carried out jungle justice, prohibited very strongly by our law. You find in Plateau State another scenario, this time around, people just going up, at least from what we can see, that is what has been reported. We do not know what the underlying causes are, whether they are remote causes or something that happened very recently. It's unclear. But what we do know is that people went into the community, shooting sporadically, killing anyone, and at the end of the day, 50 people were dead. They're still looking for some more people. In Borno State, the situation is a little different. The state has had to battle insurgency for some time now. Well, for over a decade, they have been at it. There have been many successes recorded, But right now, it does appear that the insurgents are back and they are gaining some ground. So 3 different scenarios. I don't know whether you want to find common threads with them in terms of whether it's really a lack of consequence, whether it's about, or whether or not, as a state, we're looking away from what is actually very important.
Yeah, well, thank you very much for that. It's a mix of all kinds of consequences, because number one, let's take the Uromi situation, for instance. There is a vigilante group that operates in the area, and the vigilante was set up because there were, killings. Some headers or all kinds of hunters that were going around killing people. And then the vigilante was set up. The vigilante has been successful. And you find out that there are other areas, even in the western states where you have Amotekun, all kinds of vigilante groups have been set up in different states in the federation. Now, this particular one, they've been doing their work until they discovered these people. And when they discovered them, they said, oh, they are going for Salah. You are going for Salah and you are carrying guns? And they said, oh, well, this must be the people we're looking for. And they went ahead and then meted a jungle justice on them. Now, what is wrong there? The wrong thing there is that they have taken the laws into their hands. Vigilantes are supposed to be regulated, but they were not, and of course they had them and they were just going about doing whatever they want to do. Originally, when they were formed, in fact, I remember when Amotekun was formed, the whole idea was that they are supposed to be hunters and they are supposed to be moving around in the bush, and if they see any kind of bandits or terrorists moving around, they should inform the police or the law enforcement agencies who will move in to take care of it. But now they are almost like the state police of those states that operate them. So they went and then killed all those people. That is wrong. And we have to, so fundamentally, the ground rules were not laid and they allowed them to operate. The one in Plateau State, you find out that, of course, it has happened. Farmers are doing their work, and then people will come and with their heads uproot all the food and eat it. And then, of course, the farmers are going to go back, and it was like a retaliatory thing, revenge. Now, if you leave it, you find out that they've killed a set of people. Those people will gather themselves again and go and retaliate again. I've been involved in stuff like this when I was in service, where we were calling farmers and headers, bring them to the table, talk to them, constantly, because you don't allow them. After a while, the animosities will grow. Who do they report to if cows come into their farm to eat? There must be somebody. There must be a very, very strong connection, a communication line to avoid all this. We go to Borno State. Borno State, Boko Haram has been there for so long. How many years? More than a decade. And then, of course, we're having foreign incursions. There are foreigners that are there. Recently, we're having all kinds of stories about USAID, where a congressman have to come out to say that they were actually financing Boko Haram through maybe third parties and stuff like that. And we have not investigated that properly. Our legislators don't say anything about it. And this continues. And these guys are coming up with, brand new arms. You heard the governor of Borno State. I was very, very sad when I listened to him. The guy was begging, actually, for aid to come to him. Because this guy, the military, our own military, according to him, require new arms and ammunition. What does that mean? We'll spend a lot of money on arms and ammunition. So what is going on?
Indeed, indeed, Mr. Makri, that is the question of questions at this time. What is going on? You've mentioned so many of the dynamics in this crisis, you know, but one of the things that, you know, I haven't heard you talk about is the poverty situation. We are getting reports from Borno State that there are people who haven't been receiving salaries. There are people who have been paid between 8 and 15,000 naira. And then whether that is true or not, just that poverty dynamic and how it is a recruitment ground for these terrorist organizations. Do you see any sort of solution? Because if the governor is telling us, this was the last time I heard someone say this, we are losing ground to terrorists, it was many years ago. If in 2025, a governor is saying this again, and then we're seeing violence, it's almost like coordinated violence across the country by these non-state actors. Is there a way to rein this in right now? Or have the chickens come back to roost again and there's nothing we can do about it?
Well, thank you very much. You know, of course, there are a lot of things we can do about it. If we are very serious about it, we can do a lot. You know, when the governor says we are losing ground, what is he actually saying?
Are we losing territory? You know, yes. Is that what he's saying?
Because when you look at the Boko Haram situation, when they first came, they were trying to form caliphates in the Northeast. They were going around, taking over local governments, putting their flags in there, and then, of course, trying to create caliphates. And, of course, the government of Jonathan, remember when he wanted to run, when they wanted to run an election, and about 7 local governments were taken. And they cannot, because by the INEC rules, if they go ahead and have that election without 7 local governments, then the results are not going to be credible. Everybody must be represented. And what he did was go ahead and get a PMC, a private military contracting company, to flush all of them out, you know, in a very short period. And we had our elections. Now, we have taken over those local governments. We had our elections. We've been going around. Boko Haram was scattered. They were hit and run. You know, they do hit and run now. And right now, you heard what the Shehu of Borno was saying, El Kanemi, that there are 3 local governments that are gone. You can't go there. They've been taken over by Boko Haram. 3 of them. That means we're losing grounds again. That's where the governor is saying that we're losing grounds.
I mean, Mr. Makri, I've listened to you talk about this, and I want to be able to get your thoughts on some thought processes out there. Some people actually think this is political in nature. Do you think so?
Yes, I would say that there is a political angle to it. There's a for it to persist to this extent, there's a political angle to it.
Well, not necessarily the persistence over the years. What I mean is, as we look forward to 2027, some people have posited that there are political dynamics to the instability you're seeing in this part of the country, like it has some sort of political ramification for 2027.
Well, I don't know if the government is actually waiting for 2027 before they flush them out. Then we can say, oh, yeah, you know, the government did very well in doing it. But remember, our territorial integrity is at question right now. And the reputational risk is very, very high. You know, so are we going to allow these people to continue doing what they are doing? You know, every Nigerian has to feel secured. Why don't we in fact, move all those soldiers, the troops we have in Rivers State doing emergency state of emergency to Borno State? Because that has been, you know, done before and it solved the problem. I think that's why we need a state of emergency right now. you know, and then, of course, thinking about the bandits in the Northwest and North Central, I think these are areas that we can do. Then, you know, there is no serious problem going on in River State where we will say, let's send all our troops in there. And we are thinly spread. We don't have a large army that will say, oh, let's use this to, you know, gauge where the problem is coming. You know,
that's a very interesting dynamic that you mentioned there, but I want to stay on that. A state of emergency in Borno?
Yes.
The appointment of a sole administrator?
We've done it before. We've done it before. And this time, you don't have to remove the governor because I think Governor Zulum is doing a fantastic job. He's one of the most serious governors in Nigeria today because he's been through the thick and thin of it. You know, he can be there. Let the military take over the other kinds of operations in making sure that they are there to clear out these bandits or terrorists or whoever they are. You know, I know that the Nigerian military is a very well-trained, you know, well-equipped too, army. Because there is not these ragtag guys that we see there that are going to, you know, be dealing with our army that we have to now say, oh, we can't fight them again, let's use a political solution.
When you say political solution, because that's another conversation in this matter. When we say we're looking for a political solution to the terrorist attacks in Borno and in Kebbi and in a lot of the states that we're seeing these things coming up again so disappointingly, what does a political solution mean?
Well, when you want to do a political solution, we can look at what is happening. We can benchmark with what is happening in other areas, what is happening in Ethiopia, you know, for instance, where the Fano militias are, you know, very strong in the Tigray region, and the central government is finding ways of trying to talk with them and then, you know, find a solution to it. If we're talking about Borno, Plateau State, what happened there, I think, you know, a political solution would be to bring all the warring parties together and talk to them properly and get commitments from them. And then, of course, in Borno State, you know, we have tried all kinds of, you know, you hear all these kinetic, non-kinetic, and all those kind of stuff. But that is not solving the problem, you know. So what is the real issue there? You know, you talked of poverty, you know, you talked of poverty, inequality, you know, people are not getting anything from their governments or from their states. You know, it is not taking bags of rights or, you know, going as palliatives are given to people when they are attacked. How about educating them? You know, educate these people, because you find out that even our democracy is not going to work very well if people are not well educated, you know. So,
I mean, before we wrap up, Mr. Makri, I want to get your thoughts on what the National Security Advisor has been saying. He has said it in 2 places now, and he's always talking about the people. Yesterday, in Plateau State, he said, we have to do this together. The communities have to help us as well. Then when we saw the return of the kidnapped victims yesterday, what the National Security Advisor said was, stop paying. You're enabling bad behavior. Stop paying these people. After you pay, we still have to go and rescue these people. Just your thoughts on that, you know, that thought process from the National Security Advisor, where he's looking at communities and the responsibility that the people have to stop this situation.
You know, I sometimes I get worried when the National Security Advisor will say that, because, you know, there has been an announcement by the president saying that there should be no ransom payment. No ransom payment, but at the same time, ransom is being paid. You know, just some few days ago, I was reading about some generals who went and wrote in the paper that they actually contributed money to go and release General Shiga who was taken hostage.
The military debunked it. The military said that was fake news. They said this was not true.
It is fake news. Thank God, because I was very worried. I was very worried if that press statement was correct. You know, so if the military debunked it, thank God, because I cannot foresee a situation where, you know, generals have to go and pay money to release another general. But this is what we are facing. Now, to come back to what the National Security Advisor was saying, we need to. You tell people not to pay ransom. Fine. The United States government does not negotiate with terrorists, and they don't pay anybody. Although sometimes you find out that, you know, by third parties or whatever, things are being done. But if somebody takes, we've still not addressed the issue of kidnapping in Nigeria. We've not. Because if somebody is taken hostage, do we sit down and wait for them to make a call so that we can negotiate and then go and, you know, what is the government department in the police, for instance, that I can call right now if my relative is taken hostage? Who can I call? And what is the response? Will they go ahead and say, okay, don't pay, don't do anything, don't worry, we take over this case and we are going for them, and they go there and bring them out? So you find out
those are the key questions, Mr. Makri, big questions to ask, because also yesterday the NSA received some people who were released from the captivity of kidnappers, and he was busy asking Nigerians not to pay ransom when, you know, their loved ones are kidnapped. And, you know, these were the big questions that were on people's minds. How swiftly do security agencies respond when reports like this reach their ears? In General Shiga's case, and those who were, let's say, presented at the time that he was, they were in captivity for up to 54 days, over 50 days. Yesterday, even the people that were presented, they were there for 90 days, according to some of them who spoke to the press. So there are big questions around the capacity of states to be able to really push itself and assert itself as the government, you know, that is willing to really fight for the security and the well-being of the Nigerian people. But we're almost, as a matter of fact, I don't know whether you want to quickly say something about that.
Yes,
but yes, quickly, in 30 seconds or less.
You just said it, you know. If NSA wants people not to pay a ransom, please, there should be a standby force across the country to pursue these people, because the bandits are relaxed. They are, you know, you see them counting the money, playing, joking about it, and we just allow it to go and wait for the next time. If we are not going to pay ransom, then we should have response team, very quick response team that will respond in cases of kidnapping and ransom.
Well, Mr. Dennis Amakri, it's always a pleasure to have you on the program this morning. Thank you so much for coming on the program. Mr. Dennis Amakri is the ex-director of the Department of State Services, and he joined us via Zoom from New York. Thank you once more.
Thank you for having me.